I think we hit 60 people yesterday, if I recall correctly.
I think so too.
Yeah, so we are short, but so am I, so that's okay.
That's okay, right?
Just learn to look up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it is 10 o'clock. Why don't we get started, Pat? Why don't you,
Go ahead. Do you want to start with the state law one, or do you want me to start with tax layer enhancements?
No, let me do the Pennsylvania, and then you'll do the tax layer second.
Okay.
If that's okay.
That's fine.
Good morning, everyone. It's 10 o'clock. I'm assuming that other folks are going to be joining us. I hope you found yesterday's session informative and useful. I know listening in on the afternoon session where we actually did some practices, used the practice lab for those of you who stayed on. I thought that was really, really useful for folks. We're going to do the same thing this afternoon, doing a problem in the practice lab. So if you are feeling uncomfortable with your computer skills with TaxSlayer, that is natural and to be expected because, like myself, you have not touched any of this stuff since last April, and therefore it is useful to have a refresher. Today's session, there will be three pieces. First, I'm going to talk about the changes in Pennsylvania. They're actually, I have more slides on that than I had on the federal. Secondly, Pat is going to talk about the changes within TaxSlayer, some of which are in practice lab and some of which we will find out about when we get to a live production site. This afternoon, we're going to do a very brief session on how to enter retirement income in Pennsylvania, because again, Pennsylvania is unique among the states in how it treats retirement income. And TaxSlayer over the years has developed a method to allow us to take that into account. It is one of the advantages of having a long-term contract with people. You develop things that are you solve problems, let's put it that way. And after that short session, Pat will be running another practice problem from the NTTC booklet. Somebody asked, do these two problems we're doing today count towards the 4 that you have to do? The honest answer is no. So we would like you to do 4 other problems. As Pat pointed out yesterday, we still do not have the answers or what our folks at AARP National consider to be the answers to the practice problems. We will share those if and when we finally get those, hopefully at the end of this month or the beginning of January, and that way you will be able to check. Other housekeeping details, some people are still having problems logging in either to the portal or the practice lab, or into Google accounts, into Chromebooks, and a variety of issues like that. If you are having those type of login problems, please send me an email. There are 2 basic problems, one of which I can solve, one of which I cannot. The major problem is that some people who did not participate last year have been deactivated on the portal and on the Chromebook, and therefore cannot log into either. While I can do a short-term fix, the proper way to deal with that is for me to send an email to Joe Dupree who then goes in with his magic and his higher level of permission and fixes it so that you can log in. In terms of problems with the practice lab, the easiest solution if you are continuing to have problems is simply create a new account and start all over again. I know it sounds dumb, but sometimes there just seems to be no other way around it. Why your username and password worked yesterday and doesn't work today. There is really no one we can turn to problem solve that issue, and it's just a question of starting all over again, which does mean that if you're in the middle of something, you will lose that because it will now be a new account. But regardless, email me. My email and for everyone is taxaid.pittsburgh@gmail, and I will be happy to try to solve your problem or at least kick it to the right place to where it belongs. Before I start my presentation, I'd just like to open it up. If there are any questions or issues related to yesterday or today, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask. Okay, seeing none, I will attempt to share my screen.
Looking good.
Aha, no it's not.
Is it frozen?
No, it didn't do what I wanted it to do.
Okay.
So we'll do this again. Stop presenting. Present a window. Ah.
Looking good.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay. Let me start off by saying that there is the individual who's been running the state office that interfaces with us retired last year, Bob Barton. He has been really, really good in terms of working with us and dealing with problems. There is a new individual who's taken over, who used to work for Bob. His name is Don Bianchi. I have deleted his contact information from this slide presentation, which, by the way, but however, if there is a need for anyone to contact the state directly and you think it is of substantive import, please call me or email me. I can go to him directly. One other housekeeping issue that I forgot to mention. Yesterday I referred to two PowerPoint presentations with state update. I did one, which is the actual update information, but I alluded to a second one, which has all of the inflation adjusters and all the other stuff that just is remaining from last year. All three of these presentations, those two on federal and this one on the state, are going to be posted on my pataxresources.com website. I'm going to create a little box on that site. I'll do this tomorrow. And all the PowerPoint presentations, Pat is going to provide me the links to watch the seminars if you wish to re-watch one of these. That will be posted on that site, so you will be able to access it conveniently. Again, that's pataxresources.com. Okay, with that being said, let me start talking about Pennsylvania. And let's see if this works. Okay. The state has spent a lot of time and money trying to modernize their interface with the public. And we're going to talk about the main one, which is a tax hub called MyPath. It is they've totally revamped their website from top to bottom, and they have they're making available to the general public a easier way of interfacing with the department in terms of being able to submit returns, in terms of being able to submit correspondence, and in general communicating with the department. As we all know, trying to reach these folks on the telephone is nigh impossible. As bad as the IRS is, the state is worse. But they don't have quite as many people working for them as the IRS does. My path. This is just a slide showing the timeline. Um, the ones that concern us are over here. Hopefully you can see my mouse. Yes, personal income tax and property tax rebate program, which was rolled out last year, and then they're doing everything. So they're really trying to create a site that would allow businesses as well as individuals to interface directly with them. This is what the page looks like. It's mypath.pa.gov. Now, we are considering having a separate presentation in January from the department to go through this in detail. We may or may not do that. It really depends upon the kind of reaction we all get from you guys as to whether you think it might be worthwhile or not. I'm going to just go through. Now you can go online as I'm chattering here and actually look at the page mypath.pa.gov. Okay. First of all, it will allow you to make a payment. Actually, let me stop and take a step back. Why is this important for us to know about this? It is very common for clients to have issues with the state. And in the past, the only thing we could tell the client is call the department. And to which they would respond, "Oh, you gotta be kidding me. I can't get through them. I don't have the time and energy, etc." We now have a place where we can send them. So I really would like you to explore these pages and see what is on them, because they do not, as I'm going to talk about in a second, they do not require a login. They are open to anybody and anyone to be able to do things. So a lot of this stuff, of course, on this page doesn't apply to us. Make a payment. They can make a payment online instead of sending a check. We do print a voucher form, and we always give people an envelope and tell them to write a check. I don't know. Paper checks this year. I think that's an exaggeration by the order of 10. I do everything online. I figure the huge majority of us are the same. And this way they will be able to do it online. We can point them the way forward. The other payments, paying off a lien, none of this impacts on us, non-resident inheritance tax, etc. You can now file a return online. You can file a PA 1000, you can file a PA 40. Well, that's sort of duplicative. In the sense that we are doing this for the client. Why would we tell them to go do it online themselves? Well, I've had many situations where the client has just objected. They don't like what we've done. They don't like how we've done it. They don't like us. That's fine. People are people. We now have and the answer has always been, well, you can go to H&R Block and pay for it. We now have another option. We can tell them to go do it themselves and go online and directly to the state, and they can fill out these applications. They do not need to have an account to fill out an application. They do need the ability to be able to upload documentation, which means they have to be a little bit on the computer savvy side, which for many of our clients does not compute. But that's okay. That's why they come to us. You can also track status, especially this year. I have been personally inundated with phone calls from clients wondering where both their federal and state tax return refunds are and when they're going to get them and why haven't they gotten them, yada, yada, yada. And on the federal side, we always pointed them to irs.gov and said, go fill out the form on there, just ask for basic information. The state had something, but it didn't really work very well, or at least to my experience, it didn't work very well. I have tried this, it works. It gives you, just like the federal does, it gives you an immediate response as to where my rebate is or where my refund is. This is particularly important for people who are getting a PA 1000, but because for many of our clients who apply for this is important money for them. And a delay can be dramatic. The last item on here, track my inheritance, we got tax return, we don't do that. But it is not unusual for us to get clients who ask us questions about the inheritance tax returns. As we all know, it is highly unlikely that we will ever deal with a federal inheritance tax return. If they are eligible to file one, they should be coming to us. But that's not true for Pennsylvania, because Pennsylvania requires a inheritance tax return for everybody who passes, without exception, as long as they have a dollar's worth of money that's being passed to the next generation. So again, we have a place where we can point people that they can do it themselves. You can respond to the department. Pat mentioned yesterday that the DEX 93. Don actually said to us in our presentation that while they will continue to accept DEX 93s, it is actually easier for us and the client to simply do this via their MyPath website. It does not require them to open an account. They can all they need is their basic information to be able to file a response. So documentation that needs to be uploaded. Of course, how do we upload them? Well, we can't, because we don't have the ability, through our Chromebooks to do uploads. But if the client has the ability to do an upload, they can scan their PA 1000 documentation and just send it on into the state and save themselves the cost of the stamp. Lastly, the state does have a variety of different programs for verifying who a person is, and all of that information can be done via this website. Other homepage features, this is a long list. 99% of it, I don't think anything on this page impacts on us. Mainly it is business oriented and sales tax oriented and things that we do not see, but it is good to be able to tell our clients about it in case it impacts on them. Okay, other modernization efforts. They've improved their website. It is their old website was a pain to try to deal with. You couldn't find anything. Everybody complains about websites. It really doesn't matter what you do. Somebody will find it to be obtuse, difficult to use, and generally just a pain in the butt. Well, this one fits all those descriptions depending upon how you want to feel about a website. But they have tried very hard to make it easy for people to find things. So I think the one good thing to say about the state of Pennsylvania is they are really trying to meet an online need out there, and they are to be commended for doing that. You can now also set up a payment plan. Now, we've always been able to do that through our on the federal side, or we can tell. It depends upon how lazy you are. You can either fill out the paperwork as part of their 1040, or you can tell the client to call the IRS directly. Well, you now have that same ability to do it with the state. And my understanding from a conversation I had with a taxslayer representative is they are hoping to have this part of the live system soon. Soon could mean February 1st, soon could mean 2023. But they are responding and trying to be responsive to allowing us to help our clients who are unable to pay the full amount and want to pay partial amounts. Normally, state amounts are not as anywhere near as egregiously large as the federal numbers can be, but nevertheless, for our clients, it can be an issue. Resources. Again, this will be. I'm just going to go quickly through these pages. There's a telephone number that you can direct your clients to call. There is the phone line with actual human beings on the other side. Good luck. I have not tried these, but given every other phone system we have all tried to access, I'm assuming that these will be no better or worse than they are. During tax season, people call. But here are the numbers that you can give to our clients. There is also an online chat opportunity. So if you have a question, you will receive a response within 72 business hours. Not quite helpful while we have a client sitting in front of us, but it does allow us to offer our client a way of getting an answer to their question. And you could also actually set up a call. Now, this is something the client, I would recommend that you ask the client to do this directly. We should not be doing this unless you really feel that it's advantageous, and that by doing this, we can help the client resolve whatever problem they might be having. Oops. There is a district office here in Pittsburgh. It is open. Senior citizen hours are special in the morning. Face coverage required. They're not all over the place, but we do have one here in downtown Pittsburgh. I have sent many a client down there to deal with a particular problem that they have. It is the last resort for and also the first resort for those of our clients who do not like the computer, do not like to do online anything, and would rather look somebody in the eye as long as they're both wearing masks with a plastic shield between them, and deal directly with whatever their problem is. Okay, personal income tax. First issue. Federal tax legislation has made many changes, what we talked about yesterday. Stimulus payments, meals, qualified educator deduction, charitable deduction, PPP loans. None of these impact Pennsylvania. We said this yesterday, for those who are not familiar with Pennsylvania taxes, we are a flat tax state. We do not follow the federal system. Actually, Pennsylvania has a totally different definition of what constitutes income and what is allowable and what isn't. It is a totally different system. So none of these things are important to Pennsylvania. Nor any of the acts that were passed in 2021. The stimulus payments, the child tax credit, the adjustments for inflation, none of those are relevant. Nor are any of the deductions or credits and phase outs. All this stuff is only on the federal side and does not impact on Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania did institute one new check. As you know, when we file a tax return, one of the checks that the computer does right up front is whether the ABA, the routing number, and the bank account number are valid. Well, Pennsylvania now will have its own check, which means it's going to go through two checks, which are different, which potentially could mean that it passes one and fails the other. I put a question mark at the end of that statement because we should not be surprised if when we do e-files, we see some rejections because the federal system it may be more updated than the state system. It's just something to look out for. There is a one new state act, Act 25, that allows for electronic payments, which is why we saw all that good stuff online on the payment page on MyPath. There is now a bad check fee. The state of Pennsylvania has to pass legislation implementing or not implementing, as the case may be, any federal changes. One of those changes was to accept the 1099 NEC. That required state legislation in order to have it included, and they have done that. Okay, this is the I guess important part that's going to impact us. We are going to see a lot of folks this year who are doing telework. Their company could be based in New York or Maryland or California or wherever, and because of COVID, they are working from home. Well, the question becomes, whose compensation from a tax perspective is it? Well, obviously it's federal taxation. There's no question there. They're within the United States, and so we don't need to worry about it. But what if, there are two situations. What if your business is based in Pennsylvania and you reside in Nevada? Or vice versa. What if your business is in Nevada and you reside in Pennsylvania? And prior to COVID, you worked in Nevada. I just picked that one arbitrarily. I don't even think they have a state income tax there. I don't know. So you work there, but now because of COVID, you are required, the company has allowed you to work in Pennsylvania from your desk in an office, just like most of us now have. A PA resident who is required to telework full-time from their home in PA, rather than the employer's location outside of the state, should treat their compensation as Pennsylvania source income. This is a question that's not on the interview form, but it is a Pennsylvania-specific situation. And we need to ask our clients, where are you physically working? Now, the huge majority of our clients live and work in Pennsylvania, so that's not an issue. But we do get a large percentage, or at least in the sites I have been working at, where we have people who work all over the place. And because their company is in Nevada and they are working full-time in Pennsylvania, their company may not have taken out Pennsylvania taxes. So when they give us their W-2, it's going to show nothing for Pennsylvania. Hopefully that will not happen, but do not be surprised, and please ask your clients, if they are working in Pennsylvania, does their employer know that they should have been taking out Pennsylvania taxes? And urge your clients to then reach out to their company and say, hey, you got to start doing this. I have to pay PA taxes, I have to pay local taxes, and you're not taking it out. PA does not allow a taxpayer to claim a resident credit on Pennsylvania source income. I'll be honest, when Don said that sentence, I wasn't sure what it meant. But the issue is that if you have out-of-state income, you can use the payments that you made to that other state and apply it against your Pennsylvania income. And that's what Ed is just telling me now. Okay? You can't do that if you are working in Pennsylvania even if your employer is based in Ohio. An employer located outside of PA whose only connection to PA is an employee who teleworks full-time from their home in PA is not required but may withhold on the employee's compensation. It goes back to the first point. The employer in Nevada is not required to withhold Pennsylvania taxes. But you sure as heck should recommend to your client that they ask their employer to please do that, because it is much easier to have taxes withheld than to have to write a check before April 15th to the state. We all like getting a refund. None of us like having to owe money. And these telework people do not realize that they may be in a situation where they will owe Pennsylvania taxes. A non-resident employee who is required to telework full-time from home in another state should treat their compensation as non-PA source income, even if their employer is in Pennsylvania. That's just the flip side of the coin. Your employer is in Pennsylvania, you live in Nevada. Is your income Pennsylvania income? No. It is Nevada income, because that's where your tax home is. Now, in the situation you are describing, let me look at the chat. As soon as I figure out how to get over to the chat.
I can read the questions off for you.
Oh, thank you. I just opened it up.
Sure, okay.
In the situation you are describing, will the employee need to file for a refund in Nevada if taxes were withheld in Nevada? Yes. And we cannot do a Nevada tax return because we are not trained to do a Nevada tax return. And as I said earlier, I don't even know if they have a state. Let's assume they have an income tax in Nevada. Who knows? Okay, we have to. There is a program that is nationwide with an AARP where we can call a tax preparer, an AARP tax preparer in that particular state, and have them do the return. The beauty of those consent forms that all our clients hate to sign, but we want them to sign, is that AARP tax preparer in Nevada can actually open up the return and do the Nevada tax return in that same return and then hand it back to us. So it really becomes a seamless process for dealing with out-of-state taxes. But anyway, let me come back to the elephant in the room, which is everybody, not everybody, but many of our clients who are now working from home are going to want to claim a home office deduction. You can do that on the federal side. And Pat, I'll defer to you. Is that in scope or out of scope?
That's out of scope. Home office is out of scope.
Okay, so it's out of scope for Pennsylvania too. By definition. But I'm going to talk about it anyway because you may run into this situation and the client may ask. Therefore, I always believe that it's better to be able to answer a question and to point them in a direction to get more information than simply say, it's out of scope, I don't know. But that's just me personally. Okay. On the federal side, there are two ways of dealing with home office deduction. One, there is a quick and easy simplified method. And then there is a detailed looking at their actual expenses. The simplified method, Steve Elmer just asked, is the simplified method out of scope? Yes, the simplified method is out of scope also, Pat told me, and therefore it is. The complicated method has always been out of scope, okay, because it is quite complex to do, trying to juggle between what is considered a fully expensed item versus a partially expensed item. Okay, Pennsylvania has the ability on the UE form to also have a home office deduction. Again, Pat, I'm going to defer to you. Is the home office on the state side also out of scope?
Yes, because whatever's out of scope on the federal is out of scope for the state.
Okay, then let me just quickly go through these. Okay, you must answer yes to all three questions. Does the employer require you to maintain an office? Is it your principal place where you perform the duties? And do you use it regularly to perform those duties? If you answer no, you can't claim you can't claim a home office deduction.
Steve, there's still another question here in the chat about the problem of working in one state and the office is in the other state. Ed asks, what if they work from home in Pennsylvania part-time and they're in the Ohio office the rest of the time?
That is probably going to be the regular situation. That part of their income, which is that was Pennsylvania, that they did when they were working full time in Pennsylvania, is Pennsylvania compensation. Well, actually, let me take a step back. Pennsylvania taxes worldwide income. So the money you earn in Ohio, if you live in Pennsylvania, is taxable to Pennsylvania. The way that Pennsylvania deals with it is it gives you a tax credit for the taxes you paid in Ohio against your Pennsylvania taxes. So it doesn't matter. If you work part-time in PA and you work part-time in Ohio, both that set of income is going to be taxable in the state of Pennsylvania. Okay, the difference here is that in prior years you traveled into I don't know you drove to Cleveland every day, and that's where you worked. And so everything was Ohio income. Well, now only part of that is going to be Ohio income, and part of it is going to be only Pennsylvania income. Okay. Additional requirements. The employer does not provide a suitable work area, and this is similar to the federal rules. Also, it must be an exclusive area of your home. Now, it can't be your living room. It can't be your dining room table. It has to be a closet that is large enough to fit a desk and a chair and a computer. And because who wants to hear the dog and the kids and everybody else running around while you're supposedly on the phone doing business? The fact is, we all put up with that because that's life. Okay, part of your home office expenses can only be claimed from the date the home office use began. Again, these are requirements that are similar on the federal side. You must have all the expense information. You must file and pay use tax on utilities. You are now a business. What the state of Pennsylvania is basically saying, and that we need to explain to an individual who wants this deduction, is that they are now being considered a business by the state of Pennsylvania, and therefore they have to pay use taxes. Now, I know there is on the PA 40 on page 2, there's a box that says, did you have any sales tax, or did you buy any items in which you did not pay PA sales tax? And please tell us how much it is so that you pay PA sales tax now. And every single one of us always say no and none, whether that's the case or not. Well, if you claim a home office, the state is going to come back and look at these issues and see whether you actually did what you were supposed to do. Because you are now being considered a business, once the property is used for a business, it retains a status indefinitely. So so because of COVID, you're working out of your house for 6 months in 2021. And now you are a business in in January, your office called you back, and now you have to go back to driving to Cleveland. And you do it because that's what your employer said. But because you claimed the home office deduction in Pennsylvania, it is now there forever. You can't undo it. There may be a tax due in future years when the house is sold. I think I have something specific on that one. I'm going to come back to that one. Residential use of a property is exempt, but business use is taxable. and you have to fill out paperwork and file forms. What the state is saying, and which is probably why this is out of scope, is that this is going to get quite complex for the client. Bottom line, not that it's whether it's in scope or out of scope, we want to encourage our clients, this is my personal opinion, only that, we want to encourage our clients not to take this particular deduction because of the implications for the future. And here is the biggest one. If you do take a home office deduction on your PA-40, you will have to pay personal income tax on the gain from the sale of your home on the portion of your home that you claimed as a home office. It all comes back to, by claiming a home office, you are setting yourself up as a business in Pennsylvania under the law. Okay.
Katie, do you want to have another question?
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's okay. Steve Elmore wants to know how we handle moving to Pennsylvania from another state. Therefore, I think he's talking about if you lived in two states in the same year.
If you were a resident of Nevada up until April 30th, and then you moved to Pennsylvania.
Sure.
And I'll stand corrected on this because I don't remember myself. But the Nevada income from January through April is not taxable to Pennsylvania because your tax home was Nevada. It only becomes taxable on April 1st, or May 1st, I should say, when you became a resident of Pennsylvania. And I'll stand corrected if somebody else has a different view on that.
Generally speaking, both states require copies of the tax forms completed, yes, and to have on file in their own state. In other words, for Nevada, you have to do a Nevada filing and include a copy of the Pennsylvania form, and vice versa for Pennsylvania.
May I ask a question? May I elaborate? Let's pick a different state, because Nevada really doesn't have a local or state income tax. Ohio does. And let's just say you lived in Ohio 6 months, and then you moved to Pennsylvania for 6 months. So you really have two state residencies. So you really do owe Ohio tax for 6 months, and you owe Pennsylvania tax for 6 months. But I heard you say earlier that we can't do another state's taxes. So we could do the Pennsylvania part, and then we just tell them, hey, you have to go elsewhere.
No, I didn't say that. Okay. I did not say that. Okay. I said that we have a relationship with AARP tax preparers in every state of the country. What we would do is use this program, which I don't have the details in front of me, but
it's an email address.
Yeah, we'll get you we'll get everybody an address where you will say, hey, I have this client who is in Ohio. Can you find me a AARP tax preparer in Ohio who can go into the same tax return, same file, and do the Ohio tax return, while you, Steve Elmore, are doing the Pennsylvania tax return and the federal tax return at the same time.
So in real life, it's discovering that they have two states. Do we do it in real time, or do we?
No, it requires a second visit for them to come back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
I would say about 10% of everyone I've ever done has had to come back for a variety of reasons. They didn't have documentation. They needed more, we needed more information, or they didn't have all the information they needed. So this is just another example where we do a second appointment. In my site, the way that has worked is that when you come back, you need to tell us the day, but you don't need to tell us the time, and we will take you, and when you come in. Now, given COVID restrictions, I would say we would probably set up a set appointment of when they should come back. Ann pointed out we can do other state taxes and tax aid. Yes, that is true, we can, but we are not trained to do it. Now, paren, but we have, closed paren, but we shouldn't.
That's right.
because we are not trained, and the likelihood of us not understanding the intricacies of that state is 100%. Just to turn it around, because Pennsylvania is different. Do you really want somebody in Ohio doing a Pennsylvania, somebody who's trained to do Ohio tax returns, doing it in doing a Pennsylvania tax return? They just want to understand how to, all the credits and deductions that we have available to us.
The only situation where we see that occurring to any degree is in our counties that are close to the Ohio border.
Oh, we see it in Pittsburgh all the time.
Well, I understand, but I'm just saying,
yeah.
The people that live in like Mercer County, which is right on the border, they have people that work in Ohio, and so yes, they do understand the Ohio returns, and they do take care of them.
Okay. Ed asks, how does this affect local taxes? Local taxes are based on state taxes, in the sense that since the state taxes worldwide income, so does your local tax. I just ran into this situation with somebody that I did a tax return wrong because I did not understand this particular issue. It was a kid whose tax home is here in Pittsburgh, and they did a summer job in, I'm going to keep on picking Nevada simply because it's a nice state. Did a job in Nevada. And we, working through the system, we did do again, Nevada doesn't have a state tax return, so I don't remember what state it was. Regardless, we did that state's tax return, but we did not include the state tax, the income from that state in their local EIT. Well, the local EIT wrote a letter to the client and said, well, we got told that you had this extra $20,000 worth of income. Sorry, but you owe us 3.1% of that. And they were correct. So, again, we have to look at Pennsylvania taxes worldwide income, regardless of where it is, if your tax home is in Pennsylvania. That's the proviso. Okay. Let's see. Who am I missing here? We cannot do other state taxes without assistance from the second state. Okay, yes, that's what we were just saying. Business portion of the home is based on square footage, I assume. Yes, that is correct. It is based on square footage of the home. Pennsylvania, on their UE form, does not have a simplified method. So you basically you are doing the long method. Of looking at square footage, you're looking at their mortgage, all the other things. Again, the reasons why it is considered out of scope, because it requires a level of questioning and time that we normally don't do.
Okay, there was only one other comment way back from the beginning. I'm going to pick it up here for you.
Thank you. I'm sorry I missed it.
No, that's okay. Kim Kaufman wrote in that it is her experience that the taxpayer has to have a letter ID in order to make a payment. And that's my experience as well, is there's like a one time where you have to like make this application to get an ID, but then it's good for every year after that to be able to access any of those online services.
I will defer, since I have never used their system, and it sounds like Kim has. Then that's something that we should all, it's something we should know that if they're going to make a payment, they're going to have to actually create an account, which means getting an ID. And now the state of Pennsylvania, let me just touch on that. If they do need to make an account, create an account, it is not an instantaneous process. The state will actually send you a physical letter in the mail with a code. Letter takes about a week, and then you can open up your account in order to make a payment. So it is not simplistic or instantaneous in any sense. Okay, forms and instruction changes. These are simple. Due date is now April 18th. There is a new, the PA 40 form to connect uninsured Pennsylvania with information regarding their eligibility to enroll in health insurance coverage. through something known as Penny. The state wants to be able to reach out to people who are uninsured to try to get them insurance through the marketplace, which now the Pennsylvania marketplace is now not part of the federal system. It is now a state system known as Penny. Okay. These are important issues because Pennsylvania is different from the Fed, and because TaxSlayer is a federal program with a state offshoot. TaxSlayer does not always do everything properly as expected by the state of Pennsylvania. One of the questions we asked many years ago of the state, well, don't you approve the software from these various vendors out there? And the answer was no. They review it, they send comments back, but they do not, or they did not, I can't speak for this year, Don didn't address this question explicitly, but they do not approve or disapprove tax software as it relates to Pennsylvania. So, the workarounds that we have within TaxSlayer are workarounds, and they're TaxSlayer business. So these are common errors that we run into, and this is something that we look at every single year. Make sure all schedules are completed in their entirety. If not fully completed, the return will suspend and cause processing delays. Okay, how do we know if a return, if the schedule is not completed in its entirety? Honestly, we don't. We know when it will get rejected by the state that we need to provide more information. E-filing attachments. We can, Pat, I'm going to defer to the TaxSlayer update. Can we now attach PDF documents?
Not that I know of. That isn't an enhancement that I have seen. I may have missed something.
Okay,
because that will require us to be able to scan something and get it onto a Chromebook, and we're not allowed to do that.
Unless we have a scanner.
Unless we have the scanner, I guess. Yeah, we are allowed to do that.
Yeah. So, in the past, what we have done is simply mailed. Told the client to mail the information. What the point here is, what we should tell the client is the state prefers that they email the information rather than mail the information, which just goes to show that their mail room is not quite as competent as their email room. And there's a comment here. Just to be clear, Pennsylvania does have income tax reciprocity for earned income. Yes, that is true. For those selected states, there is a reciprocity, but we see people from all over the place who've lived all over the place. Okay, losses can be claimed against gains of a different class. That means everything just adds up at the bottom line. There are times when we do paper returns. It is not often. It is actually a no-no. We are expected to e-file 100% of every return that comes in our door. We are never supposed to do paper returns, but there's always one in every crowd, and we always have one or two clients who absolutely demand that they want to be able to mail in the PA-40 or the US 1040, and God bless them, we let them do what they want to do. But what we need to make sure before they walk out the door that all of the various forms that they have provided to us, copies of that are attached to their return. Now, in most cases, most of these forms have multiple copies, so we just rip off one copy and include it and leave them with the rest. But there are times when they only give us one form because they've downloaded it. Like a W-2, their employer allows them to download their W-2 and there's just one copy. We need to either make a copy, if our site does not have access to a copier, which will be the majority of our sites, we need to tell our clients that they must attach that form to the return. Electronically filed returns. We do not need to attach anything unless there is PA withholding. This applies particularly to 1099-Rs. There are many financial institutions that have been in existence, some of whom have been in existence for well over 100 years, who still haven't gotten the message that Pennsylvania does not tax retirement income. And so they take out money. And the client, and that's what we're going to do at 1 o'clock to show you what to do in those situations. It's not normal, but it does happen. But in that situation, that a copy of that 1099-R must be sent to the state, and that's where the Dex 93 comes in. And we also must submit the W-2 under certain conditions. And I think the next one is going to show those conditions. Okay, PA compensation is not the same as box 16 of Form W-2. Why would that be? Because he's had other compensation like jury duty or other things that might have impacted on that. And so there can be a difference between the compensation on PA 40 and what's on the box 16. In that situation, all the W-2s need to be sent to the state. Handwritten W-2s. The employer reported an incorrect amount on their W-2. Again, a written statement from the employer is required. The employer withheld PA taxes more than 3.07%. We did a return a couple of years ago of somebody who ultimately we told them not to come back because they were, for 2 years running, their employer was taking out 10% of their income and paying it to the state. And the first year, we accepted it as, okay, this was an error, an oversight, naughty, don't do it again. When they came back the second year, we said, we think this might be fraud. Please don't come back, go away, don't bother us. It is rare, but not inconceivable that an employer makes a mistake and does not take the 3.07% out. And we need to, again, file that W-2 with the state. The taxpayer is a resident of a reciprocal compensation agreement state, and the employer withheld PA income tax. Okay, that's the situation we were talking about earlier, where we have reciprocity for earned income with Ohio, West Virginia, Maryland, New Jersey, and I think Virginia also, but I'm not sure. Medicare wages in box 5 are greater than W-2 wages in box 16. We need to explain why. The PA resident is working in another state and did not have PA income tax withheld by the employer. That's my example earlier of the person in Nevada. I really shouldn't have used that state. I should have said California. Person lived in worked in California, and the California company didn't withhold. The state wants to be able to yell at that company and say you should be doing this because they want their money during the year and they don't want to wait until the client actually fills it out. The distribution from a non-qualified deferred compensation plan is included in box 1 of Form W-2. I don't think I've ever seen that. A PA resident has a W-2 form that shows earned income or tax withheld from another state. We do see that, and these forms need to be mailed to the state. The Form W-2 or WP, the W-2P include no PA compensation. Number 5 could be a graduate student who's under a scholarship where they did not take out Pennsylvania taxes. That's a bad example because that's a situation where they're supposed to take out taxes. Active duty military. We need to, the state wants to see their W-2s. and most accounts are only set up to process. Okay, the next point is many times when people come and they download the email with their tax documents, it will be the tax documents plus 10 pages of explanation. Don't send them the 10 pages of explanation, just send them the document. Their servers fill up too.
I think they're saying not to send any information in the email proper, but only information
Only
on the
attachment?
attachments.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you, thank you.
Mhm.
You are, yeah, no, you're right, I read this wrong.
That's okay.
Okay, property tax. Free electronic filing option, we talked about that. And this is in my path, they can now do this online. When we file their PA 1000 and they come back to us and say, but, we now can tell them that there is a place for them to go, my path, in order to view the information that was filed and fix the information that was filed. We had a situation last year where we did a PA 1000 incorrectly. The rebate information did not carry properly to the PA 1000. The rent amount did not carry properly, and so it showed zeros that they were supposed to get, and clearly that was wrong because they were due a rent rebate. And the question was, how do we fix it? And the answer last year was, call the state. There is no process for an amended return. Well, now there is. You do it through my path. Paper claims, we don't do much with papers. We try to stay away as much as possible, but we do paper property tax. Now, first, those people who have had who filed paper last year will get a form. We should every site should have a quantity of PA 1000 booklets available to them, or at least the forms on paper. Even though the system generates it, sometimes it's easier to do it on paper, and the client wants it done that way. There are, again, on my path, there's fillable forms. Okay, just a couple of minor issues. Stimulus payments should not be included on the PA tax form. I don't know if TaxSlayer, because we do not have access to TaxSlayer for Pennsylvania just yet. I do not know if that has been implemented. It's something that we need to be able to check.
That wasn't a problem last year at all, and we were working with EIPs last year.
Then it shouldn't be one this year.
No.
Okay. ABLE distributions, qualified distributions from ABLE savings programs are not to be included as eligibility income on your PA 1000. And again, this was an issue last year. So I'm assuming the TaxSlayer did it properly last year, though I do not know. The fact that it was on his slide presentation indicates that that there is some tax software out there that may not be doing it correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the biggest change is in past years you had to have the application in by June 30th. They've now extended it to the end of the year. And this says 2021, and I'm wondering if he meant 2022 also.
No, I think he meant that they extended it this year, and they do
yeah,
that. They extend
yeah.
it almost every year, but we should still continue to tell taxpayers that the deadline is June 30th, because during tax season, it is June 30th. They don't extend it until later.
Okay. Just minor issues. Additional items have been added to the list of income that is not reported. The country code field has been changed. For renters, the rent certificate needs to be included. It always did. This is the last one is not new, so I'm not sure why it's there. All rent, I guess in some parts of the state, people weren't doing this. TaxSlayer does it. All renters must submit a fully completed rent certificate or rent certificate for each place the claimant rented and occupied during the year, completed and signed by the landlord or authorized agent. Um, what happens for us is the client should bring this in if they're, as opposed to the property tax, if they're a renter, we should not complete a return unless the client has given us a completed form. Very often we will complete it and tell the client to go back and get the landlord to fill it out. What the state is basically saying is, in many situations, the client doesn't do that. They just send it in without a signature. So the word to us is we cannot give them a PA 1000 if they're a renter until such time as we have gotten their rent certificate signed, sealed, and delivered from the landlord.
In which case, we could just tell them to go to a representative's office to have it done when they do get that form instead of coming back to see us a second time.
Yep. Again, if you're unable to obtain a signature, they can provide a letter. I mean, there's all kinds of different options. If the landlord is unable or unwilling or incapable of signing the PA 1000 RC form, but the message we want to give to our client is all these things need to be done before we can hand them the envelope saying, here's your rent rebate to be able to be mailed in. Now, what this implies also, I'm just thinking out loud here, is we are supposed to give everything back to the client. What it means is we're not going to give them the PA 1000, and they're going to need to come back, and we're going to need to reprint it when they come back with the proper forms. Common filing errors, Social Security income needs to be included, tax bills, filing on behalf of the decedent, there needs to be additional paperwork there. Paper claim forms must be signed. One of the things that we do at least on our site, and it should be done in every single site, is before a client walks out the door, they have signed the 8879 for the feds and the state. They have signed their local EIT form, and they have signed their PA 1000 in front of you. So you see them sign. Here's contact information for the department, the general information. And this is the last piece of this. Okay, identity validation. This is something that the state had asked us to do a while ago, and we basically said no. It was way too much work, and so the state said, okay, we'll do it instead, and we won't ask you, the tax preparer, to be responsible for this. But we will get questions about it. All first-time filers with the state of Pennsylvania are going to have their ID verified by the state. They're going to get a letter in the mail with a quiz to verify who they are. Okay, and all of this can be done. This is what the letter looks like. They can go to MyPath to fill it out and enter the verification code. The issue for us is to advise our clients that they may be getting a letter from the state asking them to verify their personal information. That's our only obligation. We are not involved in filling this out, in verifying it, or doing anything else, which is what the state originally asked us to be involved in a couple of years ago, and we just said it was above and beyond our responsibility. Okay, there's information on the letter. If the person is unsuccessful for whatever reason, here's what they need to do. They need to upload documents and then get another letter from the state. The state will never call you on the telephone. The state will never send you an email. If a client comes to you and tells you, well, I got a phone call from the state or I got an email from the state, there are 4 little letters that should follow that. LOVE, no, SPAM, spam. It's somebody trying to rip you off. Just ignore it. The state does everything via the U.S. mail, just like the federal government. And with that, I will leave it at thank you and open it up
One
to
more
any
question.
questions. Okay. This is only for first timers. It is for first timers and anyone for whom the state determines it is necessary to do it for. Who does that include? Very early on, they gave us a big, huge list of people. A couple of years ago, this was a big, huge list of people that that we should be on the lookout for. Don did not provide us with that list this year because it is all done internally. So our only job is to say, if you may get a letter from the state asking for verification information, if so, go to my path to verify the information. It is easy and painless if you use the information on the letter to verify yourself. Other questions? Feel free to unmute yourself if you wish.
I'm just curious. This is Steve Elmore. I've never seen that form before. What's it supposed to try to do?
It's a fraud protection. The state gets many people who file a tax return who are not real people. There's a whole business in doing that. And so if the state gets a tax return from someone they've never heard of before with a apparently legitimate W-2 and a legitimate X, Y, and Z asking for a refund of Y dollars, the state has determined that this is how they're going to respond. Are you really Steve Cohen? We've never heard of you before. Are you really Steve Cohen? Please prove it to us. This is a wonderful fraud detection mechanism. It is very, very effective. Through other mechanisms that I talk to people about, fraud in Pennsylvania has declined precipitously in comparison to what it was before they introduced this program.
But even at that, we do take steps for first timers ahead of time by having a copy of their driver's license sent in with their return. And if it's somebody who's less than 65 and they're become disabled and they're trying to apply also, then we have to have not only their driver's license, but we also have their copy of their letter that says that they're disabled.
This program is not a challenge to legitimate CPAs, tax preparers, accountants, or anybody like that. We all go through, as Pat pointed out, we all go through a verification process to make sure the person in front of us is the person in front of us. However, mistakes happen. I mean, I'll be honest, I don't know of any that have ever happened, and I've never heard any stories of mistakes that have happened amongst our clientele. But we do know that when you have online filing, that it is very easy to fake this information. To create a social security card, to create a W-2, it just takes a very good Photoshop person to do that. And this is what the state's response to anybody they've never heard of before.
So if I can say back so I understand it, so this would be triggered by a first time in Pennsylvania tax filer and say they're due a refund, the state won't process it until this form is filled out on paper. They'll receive it by mail. They'll fill it out either electronically or on paper. Then they'll get their refund.
That is correct.
That's right.
The refund is held up until such time as you verify your income.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. This actually took longer than an hour. I apologize for that. Do we want to take a 5-minute break, and then Pat, I'll turn it back over to you?
Yeah, 10 minutes. We'll come back
10
again
minute
at
break?
11:25. See you back online, 11:25.
Thank you all.